Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop. And this time we're actually getting to the boat and we might be doing some... Oh wait. Gotta hold off on the woodworking. Let's do more boat stuff. I've painted a boat only once before. I really don't like doing it because you're always going to see it as a painted boat. But in this case, the gel coat was so bad and the amount of work I had to put into it, it just was not going to buff back out. Plus, all of these stickers on the outside, many of them are peeling off and it just was never going to look good. So a paint job would actually look better than restoring the gel coat and buffing it down. So we decided to actually strip it all down. And that meant I had to take off all of these stickers, and there were a ton of them. Some of them came off very easily and some of them did not. Some of them I had to scrape off. That leaves a little bit of stickum on the surface that we then have to come back and take off as well. So this was a good bit of a chore to work this down. I am going to be using the back swim board as kind of a test bed for the paint because it has the same as what's on there. It's kind of cream colored as the base. And we're going to be changing it out to a bit of a teal. But it has a bunch of little problems that need to be fixed. So we're going to be using a lot of the Total Fair from Total Boat. This is a filling compound that's a two-part, mix it together. It goes in pretty quickly and you can address it very quickly after. Kind of like a Bondo, but much lighter and softer, and I find it a little bit easier to work with than Bondo. And so we can use this to fill in any of the patches, and we're going to be doing this several times. I'm going to do one coat, and then we're going to paint it, and then I'm going to come back through and add a few more. This surface on all of these were very, very dirty, and so we needed to come through and scrub it off. I'm going to hit all of the surface with a Scotch-Brite pad before the painting. I did a bunch of tests with rolling and tipping as opposed to just rolling, and with the Total Boat top coat with a little bit of thinner in there, it actually rolls out beautifully, and I did not find any benefit from coming back and tipping it, as long as I made sure to watch for any drips and take care of those. It laid out just absolutely gorgeous, and I love working with this. I've gotten a chance to use it twice before, and it works really, really well. It still looks like a painted surface. You're never going to get that perfectly gloss, smooth surface unless you come back and buff and really polish. But with a little bit of work, it can be very, very, very good. For a lot of the goo on here, I actually had to come through and sand it off. I started with a 220 and hit the whole surface with 220 and then a 300. And this allowed me to see if there's any dings or imperfections I needed to come back and fill. There were a lot of holes on this that needed to be filled that were plugged in before. Yeah, you can see it was before known as Sting's Ray. So this is a Sea Ray is the type of boat, the manufacturer. But apparently someone had named it that in the past. So we're going to use the Total Fair to come back in and fill a lot of these holes in here. There were a bunch right along this stripe line where they had just covered them up with tape, and it was a cosmetic thing. And so I decided to fill those in because I was going to be putting some tape on it, but I wanted to kind of clean that up. There were a lot of little holes from old badges and other hardware that had been put on this, and so I had to do a lot of filling in. But I wanted to do that and get it all cleaned up before the first coat of paint. And yeah, you can see lots of old scratches as well. This boat has seen a lot. It is from 1989, so it isn't a spring chicken anymore. And then once we got that all sanded and smoothed out, we had dust on everything. And I really wanted to give it a very, very solid clean down. And so I came in with the pressure washer and hit all surfaces and sprayed everything down. And then I washed it thoroughly and cleaned the surface. There was some mold buildup, especially on the top hatch, that really needed to be blasted out, and the pressure washer made very quick work of that. I did come back through, and when I did the wash down, hit a lot of it with a scrubbing pad as well. But I really enjoyed my time with the pressure washer. Later on, I am going to be redoing the bottom coat. I was going to originally strip it all off and paint it all the same color, but there was so much on this bottom I wasn't able to get it off, and the amount of work that went into it, I just decided in the future I'm going to repaint the bottom. So right now we're doing everything from the water line above. Once it has all been washed and ready for painting, we're actually going to come back through and blue tape. I'm going to be blue taping off everything I don't want to take off. There are a bunch of things I was able to take off, but there are a lot of other things that I really could not take off because I would have to take apart the cabin inside. Here you can see I'm using the top coat and some of the thinner that comes with it. I'm also putting the second coat on the swim platform before I go into the boat just to check that. And so this has been my test going before I actually get into the painting. And then we can start painting everything. And we're painting everything. Anything that had this original cream on down to the water line is all going to be painted. Coming in with a foam brush just to hit into those outside edges. On the later coats, I was just using the roller on everything, and I was able to get into all of the nooks and crannies. You have to be careful of drips. On the first coat, not so much, because you can sand those out and take it back down to bare gel coat. But I want to be really, really careful, especially on the second and third coat. And you'll see later I actually employ my kids to come out, and they're walking around the boat and checking it and making sure and following after me. The first coat always looks horrible. You can just see right through it, and it's heartbreaking, like, oh no, I'm doing the right thing. But then it dries, and you come back and you see this mirror finish, and it's so pleasing how this paint just lays out. It's phenomenal. So in between each one, we're going to come back through and hit any little problem spots. If there was any drip I missed or anything like that, we sand it smooth, and then we're going to hit the whole surface with 300 grit. This gives us another bit of texture to hold everything on. After hitting with the 300 grit, we come in and we wipe it off and clean it down so that there's no dust on it, so that the next coat will sit on it. I would like to do all of this painting in a garage or shop or other airtight space, but I didn't have a space I could put the boat in big enough, so I just moved it into the middle of the yard away from the trees and let it sit. We did have a little bit of problem with a few bugs landing on it and things like that, but for the most part, it actually worked out pretty well, and I was very, very happy with the outcome. So after the first coat, we come in with the second coat, and you can see how thin this is. It really is a very, very thin coat, and we don't want to put much on there, and it is going to run if you put too much on there. So you want to very, very lightly put it on and just get enough to cover it. Do not put thick coats on, and it goes pretty well. And 3 coats is all I needed for this, especially with that, even with that dark brown, it really covered it up very, very nicely. So we did another coat, and then we came back through and sanded it again, cleaned it, and then we put on a third coat. And here we're going to come back to the swim board, and we're going to start putting on the foam EVA flooring. And this is my test bed because I want to do this actually on the floor all throughout the inside. But for this one, it's actually going to be a blue checker piece. You'll see that in a moment. But we want to make a pattern so I can take this inside and actually make the shape out. So I laid the plastic on top of it. Clear allows me to flip it back and forth and see it from both sides. And then I'm going to use a Sharpie to mark out the outline. I'm putting it about a 1/4 inch in from the inside, from the outside edge of it. And we can trace that all around where all the holes are and any cuts we need to make in the plastic. And then we can take this down to the shop. And I'm actually going to get to use some woodworking tools on foam. A while ago, I made a video about fiberboard ceiling tile planes. And in that video, I said there really is no modern need for them. There is no modern use I've found where they could be useful at all unless you're doing restoration or historical restoration. And I found out that actually for EVA foam, they work beautifully. So you're going to see those here in a minute. But we put the pattern on top and trace it out and cut it through. You need to make sure your knives are incredibly sharp, and that's why I'm actually using this so that I can break off the tip. And I redo those for every 10 feet or so. I put a new edge on them. And for these holes where the screws are going to be, I actually found this 1 inch cut. I actually used this to cut out the coins that I send to people when they put in orders. Made this perfectly circular hole to punch in there. And then we can come in and do all the little detailing and work with a knife. It works very well if you do a little bit in and then come back and do a little more and then a third pass to cut all the way through, especially on these curved sections. But I do want them to have a 45-degree edge, and here is the foam board cutter. I was actually experimenting with this for the outside edge. Works beautifully. And then I've got another one I'm going to come back in to put lines into the pieces when we do the flooring. So you'll be seeing more about that when we actually get to the flooring. But it was kind of fun to find a woodworking use for modern boat building, I guess. It worked out pretty well. So we can take this back up and test it with this and make sure it all fits down onto this. And I was very, very, very happy with how this came out. Gave me a really nice edge, and it looks great. And for the swim platform on the back, this is going to be really nice because when you're coming out of the water, it gives you a little more texture, a little more grip, so you're not going to step on this and slip back into the water. Also fairly comfortable for sitting on there and hanging your feet off and hopefully not letting them get hit by the propeller. But really, really happy with how this came out, and it has made me excited for doing the flooring inside. It was far easier than I expected it to be. So back to the boat, we're going to be hitting this with the third coat, and on this coat, I'm being very, very careful not to get any drips, and I'm putting it on as lightly as I possibly can and still getting the coverage. And I'm also using the kids to watch and check, and they're going back over things and looking for drips, and they're looking at it with a glint from the the sun so that they can see, is there any spot that I missed, anything that I didn't go over, and just making sure that this final coat is perfect and smooth and as beautiful as I can possibly make it. And after that has cured, then we can come in and start to do the other coats, because we're going to be putting on 2 other colors on this. We're going to do a dark blue and then a teal into it to match the upholstery that we just did on the inside. And so that means putting out more blue tape. For the first one, we're actually going to be using some of the blue tape that we used before and going over top of that. For the teal, that means I'm going to have to take off the blue tape and do more on it. I wasn't able to get to the teal on this boat, but you'll see that coming up here. We do want to hit it with a 300 grit sandpaper, just give it a little bit for the next coat of paint to bite into, and also make sure any of the surface is off. And then you can start to hit it with the blue, which is the exact same color as the blue tape, almost. Yes, being very careful not to go past the blue tape lines, as I did in one spot. You can actually see it just a little bit over on the far side. And we are going to be naming the boat Panama. Why are we going to name it Panama? And that way I can say when I'm taking it to the boat ramp that I am pulling a Panama. Yeah, my wife, when I got the boat, she was like, "Oh, we're going to name it the Panama." Yes, we're going to name it the Panama, and I really like how that came out. Just did it on the vinyl printer I have in the shop, and worked out very, very well. And then for the most pleasing part of all, peeling off the tape and seeing what's underneath and getting that beautiful crisp line on there. Very, very happy with how this came out. So I'm actually doing a short here soon where it's just peeling tape, because it is so absolutely pleasing. And this was the point where the whole family came out to watch everything come in. In between the blue and the white, I'm going to be putting a silver pinstripe, just something to pop that a little bit. Trying to keep the retro look to it and having a little bit of fun as we go. And I'm really liking how this is coming out. So now we've got to move on to other things. So we were having problems with the engine running and getting fluid, and so I was taking things apart, and that meant I needed the spark plugs. And to get to the spark plugs, we had to take manifolds off, and I was trying to figure out why it wasn't running the way it was, and then realized that someone had plugged in this spark plug and this spark plug, but not that one, and none of these were tight. They're all finger loose. So maybe that's why it wasn't running. The other 3 are good, but this side, well, I'm glad I took the manifold off. I thought getting a free boat and all, it would be smooth sailing. I might take this out on the water this year, but no, probably not going to make it out on the water this year. I got most of the painting done this time. I still have to go back and do some of the detail trim. We have to do all the bottom, but that means moving it around on the trailer, which is going to be a whole nother ball of wax. And I still haven't even gotten to doing the woodwork. I brought all the wood down into the shop, but yes. Fun times. I'm also going to be doing some woodworking on the floor, but with foam rather than wood, and we're going to be doing it in a woodworking way, so that should be coming up. But with the engine problems and all of that, and I'm actually going to be gone for almost a month, I don't think I'm going to be able to get this in the water this year. So this is going to be a longer project. I may end up setting it aside until spring next year, because we're about to hit the fall and I might come back and it's snowing. So it's not as much fun with a boat when you have to cut a hole in the water to get it in. But all that being said, it is getting done, and I am looking forward to hearing all of your ridicule and the things I did wrong and things I could have done better. Throw those down below. I do look forward to reading them. I do actually read through all the comments and I answer as many of them as I can get to. So if you want to help out the channel, like, comment, share, subscribe, you know all that stuff. Or you could become one of these people over here. Those are some of the fantastic, wonderful, benevolent, gorgeous people over on Patreon. Without patrons on this channel, we would not exist. You guys support this channel. You keep things going, and without you, we wouldn't be here. So thank you for that. And if you want to find out more about that, help out the channel, then there's links down below. I think that'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. I know, you all warned me, boat, hole in the water you throw money into. It's kind of like banging your head against the wall. It feels so good when you're finally done.